Okay, I will go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Pooja. I am a grad TA for EPICS. I am doing my master's in aerospace engineering. Before this, I was doing my bachelor's at Purdue in mechanical engineering. And while I was doing that, I was an EPICS student for 3 semesters on the AAE team. So I'm excited to be here today to talk to you guys about how to work effectively in remote teams, since we are in a very unprecedented type of situation. It's really difficult sometimes to collaborate with our team members with a lot of challenges thrown in and a lot of hurdles to pass. So we'll have a kind of discussion based on that today. It is not a very talk at you type of skill session. I want you guys to discuss and kind of get your input as well. So there'll be points throughout the presentation where I'll pause, take a second, ask you guys a question. So feel free to jump in. I won't be able to see the chat when I'm sharing my screen. So feel free to just unmute yourself, share your thoughts, comments, any feedback that you might have about whatever we're talking about, and we'll go from there. If you have any questions, feel free to stop me and we'll get that addressed. So I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Are you able to see my screen? Can I get a yes or no?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah, I can see it.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see. Okay. We definitely anticipate a lot of challenges this semester with collaborating with the team being in a hybrid setting, with part of it being online and part of it being in person. And even when it's in person, there's a lot of restrictions, obviously, for how close proximity you can be in with another person, with your teammates. So there's a lot of challenges, and I wanted to ask you all, what are some of the challenges you anticipate, or what are some of the challenges you've faced so far in this semester trying to collaborate with your teams? So feel free, unmute yourself and let me know your thoughts. What are some of the problems that you run into with your teams?
With our team, Team India, we have 16 students currently, and the lab that we're meeting in has a requirement of only 15 people in it. So we've kind of been lucky so far. We've had the TA and the advisor meet in their offices and then have the Zoom call on. And then so far we've had at least one person be online for that week. So we've been kind of lucky so far, but I don't really know what's going to happen when everyone's there. We have literally too many students for the room.
Good point. Thanks, Cody.
Yeah.
And any other challenges, any other comments?
So our challenge would be probably near Thanksgiving when we transition to online. Our project is mostly hands-on in lab at the moment. We don't have the problem with enough people. We have about we have 6. And so, I don't know, the transition to online is what's going to be hard because our project is all hands-on.
Right, that's a big factor with this hybrid setup and not having access to the labs like prior semesters where it was just kind of walk in and walk out, much easier to access. Good point, definitely. Anybody wanted to add anything else? All right. So some of the challenges that I was thinking of when I made these slides at the beginning of the semester was obviously technical issues. There's going to be that bad internet connection, or there's going to be that headphone that's not compatible with your laptop, or some kind of software issue that your microphone isn't working on your laptop anymore. And it's just annoying because you run into all these issues while you're just trying to have a straightforward meeting with your team. Another additional hurdle that can be for some of your teams if you have remote students is the difference in time zones. I know for a couple of my labs, we have students that are in India or in China, or even not students, but your project partners may be in different time zones, right? It can be hard to get a hold of them, or scheduling meetings where it's not too super early in the morning for you, not too super late at night for them. I know Team India has to be really cognizant of that. So that's a challenge. And one of the biggest ones is lack of in-person interaction. So even when you do meet in person in lab, being 6 feet apart from everybody, having your masks and face shields on, it's not the same as kind of, being shoulder to shoulder, someone looking at a computer screen and trying to collaborate with someone. And so this requires kind of an almost new skill set, new communication skill set on your part as team members to be able to work as effectively as you possibly can with all of these challenges. So now that we've talked about some of the challenges that you expect, what are some of the ways that you've overcome these challenges that we've just talked about? Or it doesn't have to be the same challenges, but something that you and your team members have experienced. How have you overcome those? Crickets? Is someone trying to speak? I don't hear you.
At least for issues that we've overcome, because there are some people in classes that I'm in that are in different time zones. We just have to stick by a pretty strict schedule, I guess. We don't really have that many in-person meetings, or at least what we have done is get into smaller committees. So instead of having everyone meet at one time, we get 2 people that might be able to make something work meet, and then 3 people meet in some other time at some other time. So we form subcommittees and try to have pretty good planning.
Awesome. That's a really good workaround for having remote students or remote project partners. Even if the whole team can't make it, have a section of the team meet with them, take meeting notes, and then kind of have that post-meeting discussion with the rest of your team. Awesome. Thank you for that.
No worries.
Did anyone else want to add something? Any specific challenges that your team faced and how you overcame them?
Hi, can you guys hear me? I was trying to talk, but it wasn't.
Yeah,
okay.
We can hear you now.
Okay, so I'm on EWB, Engineers Without Borders, and we're on the technical team. So my sub team meets in person together, and we design and talk as a group, and then the whole group catches up in the end. But it's nice because the people you directly work with, we've gotten to have that in person, not in lab. So it's been helpful.
That's good. That's good. So kind of splitting your time between in-person and individual time. Good. Any final thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I also just wanted to add, I think that the biggest thing, I'm also on EWB, and I think the biggest thing for us in the human-centered design team has just been, quite frankly, when people are back at their dorms, not being able to hear everything people are saying or having people cut out, and so just focusing on having patience with other people and I guess providing a little bit of extra time in case in meetings in case things don't go as planned or if things are a little bit delayed because of those issues.
Yes, absolutely. Having that extra bit of flexibility for your fellow team members, being a little bit more cognizant of the challenges that we all face with this, that goes a really long way. So be considerate, work together, and we'll go over some few tips that can help overcome these challenges. So effective communication. Now with any team, be it in person, online, hybrid, effective communication is a key kind of given that you need to have a good rapport set out with your team. You need to have constant communication, constant feedback, and be in touch with each other, constant regular updates. So the first thing is be transparent. Be clear about when you're available to your team and when you're not. You have your Microsoft Teams calendar. It's a great place to kind of, keep all your meetings, all your classes, your office hours or whatever aside on there so you know exactly when you're available and when you're not. And MS Teams has this cool feature where if you're online or you're away or you're busy and you don't want to be disturbed, you can have that setup shown on kind of like a Facebook update or whatever. So Next is regular status updates. If you are falling behind on something that you were assigned, if you are on time with something that you were assigned, convey that to your team members. If there's no communication for 3 days straight and you're supposed to meet for your weekly meeting on a Tuesday or something, and then you bring up issues then, or something that fell apart then, that's not enough time for the rest of the team to kind of recoup, rethink. So use those group me's or Teams channels that you have and make sure that you're regularly updating your team members on something. And this will get more and more important, especially as we go through towards the end of the semester, when things pick up pace and you're trying to wrap stuff up. You have to get your design document done, you're preparing for final design review, you're preparing transition documents. There's a bunch of administrative things that fall on you, and you're just trying to, get your ducks lined in a row. So make sure that you're staying on top of it, regularly updating your team members and keeping each other accountable and in check. Ask for help when you need it. If you're struggling with something, same rule, right? If something goes wrong on Sunday and you're struggling with it and you have your meeting on Tuesday, it doesn't help to bring it up on Tuesday, but later that day on Sunday when you've tried to fix it and are unable to do it yourself, reach out to your fellow team members, reach out to them and lean on them, because everybody on the team has something special that they bring to the team. So make sure you use those resources and use the talent and the skills of the different people that you have on your team to help you out. Now that works both ways. Your team members will lean on you as well. So when they approach you for help and when they come to you for questions, you always have to be there with that open mind and that positive attitude. And I want to especially emphasize this now because body language, that's something that we rely so heavily on and we don't realize when we're having our in-person interactions with people, with your face being half covered and so much distance between you and your teammates. Even if you're trying to crack a joke or a sarcastic comment, it may not come off the way you want it to because there's some elements, AKA your body language, that's missing in it. So be cognizant of those things, be very clear about what you're trying to say and what your intention is. Use the kind of language that promotes growth mentality. And when I say that, what I mean is if someone texts you to, ask a question about something instead of just like a K period or whatever, or sure, it helps in situations like these to kind of go that extra bit of, yeah, I would love to sit down with you and discuss this. Or I think that's a good idea. We should talk about this a little bit more. How about we meet up on Tuesday and talk about this? So make sure that whatever you're saying, the intention of that comes across clearly, because people are not going to have your facial expressions, your body language to rely on anymore to pick up those small social cues. So be clear about that. And yeah, at the end of the day, you are also a resource to your team. So your skills, your input, your thoughts are as valuable as anybody else's on the team. So don't forget about that. They will lean on you from time to time. You will be either the CAD model person or somebody who's a pro at doing circuits, and that's your thing. So make sure that your team members can lean on you and feel comfortable approaching you and talking to you about those things instead of being either intimidated or not sure if you'd be as open to having a conversation about something as they would like to be. And the last thing is be direct. If you have something on your mind, either if something's bugging you or if some issues with the project are coming to light and there's some problems, instead of sugarcoating it, instead of beating around the bush, be direct with your team members. Instead of saying, oh, I think we can fix this, but just so you guys know, there's like, this part is broken, but I'm pretty sure we can get a new part and we can place an order for it. It should be here in 2 days. If you're not sure about it, if you think that order is going to take longer than 2 days and it's going to take 2 weeks, make sure your teammates know about it. Be direct, be precise. If it's really important critical information, get a bullet point list of it and send it out in one go. Don't be vague, be decisive. And that was more for when you're making decisions in a group. And if it's going to be an online meeting, if people have their cameras turned off and mics muted, just like how I am, where I can't see you guys. And if I ask a question and no one responds, it's kind of like, talking to a wall. So it's easy for the person who's speaking to just kind of back off and be like, okay, I'll give you guys a couple days, think about it, and then we'll make a decision. So it's easy to kind of let that go and not make that decision immediately. versus if you had that same meeting in person and you were looking those people in the eye and making that eye contact, that decision would be made a lot faster because that social cue, that body language is right there that I'm expecting an answer from you right now. So those small things make a lot of difference to make sure that you're trying to keep that constant even in this hybrid situation. Don't beat around the bush. And one good example that I got from this video about working in remote teams is don't be that person who's sending 10 emails in a row. Like I know I got like 4 emails from the same person, one after the other, 2 minutes apart. Be concise over there, get everything down in one email and send it out all at once. Because try to compare that messaging system with in-person interaction, as every email counts for every time someone comes at your door and knocks on your door and asks you a question. It's better if you get it all out of the way in one go instead of the same person coming to your door, knocking 4 times and being like, hey, also this, gone, 2 minutes back, hey, also that. So make sure that you cover all your topics and whatever is on your mind in one email or one message, and then have the discussion or conversation if you're meeting in person later or through that message thread. So yeah, that is what I had about the kind of 3 important parts about having effective communication in a team. Now for this section, I want to open it up to you all and ask, what are either some of the issues you have had or solutions that you've made for these issues, communication issues that you've had with your team, and share it with us. I would love to hear.
Our team just has a group me, and so we just like communicate through that, which is pretty easy.
Yeah, GroupMe's are great. I know when I was a student using a GroupMe to just kind of have those quick updates, quick reminders. Hey, we're meeting at this time here and there, here's a reminder. Or hey, don't forget that the budget is due this week, those kind of things. It's also very helpful to have that as that quick status check instead of sending out a whole email, because that feels a lot more formal. So yeah, GroupMe is very helpful. Anything else?
We were using Slack before, and like after the Microsoft Teams transition, I was missing messages notifications, so turning those on definitely helps to see those.
Yeah, make sure your Teams notifications are on so you can get that update from your team members. And Teams is also in some ways similar to Slack, where you have your channels for your different projects. So that's a great place, not just for file sharing, but also, you know, quick kind of like having discussion threads on there about specific problems. And if there's somebody on your team but not on your project who may have some background information on a certain skill set that you guys require, they can provide that helpful feedback because they will have access to that channel. So just something to keep in mind. It's like it'll get higher visibility if it's there on Teams versus a one-on-one text to someone. So yeah, good point. Anything else? Okay, then we'll move on to team accountability. Now, I really like to emphasize the importance of meeting minutes, because I have seen a lot of the times, especially for students that are new to EPICS or new to kind of a team-oriented class and not like an individual class where you write, you know, exams and there's like regular homeworks and stuff. Meeting minutes are so important because it's easy to forget the discussions that you've had. It's easy to forget who was assigned what task. It's just easy to forget, period. And meeting minutes or meeting notes, whatever you want to call it, are a great way to hold each other accountable for what you guys have decided, for keeping track of progress. So you know, if you go back to your notes and talk, if you, for your notebook, for example, if you know that week 2, week 3, week 4, if in your work and accomplishments, meeting notes, whatever, it says that you were trying to make a decision on task A. For 3 weeks, if you're trying to make a decision on the same thing, you can keep track that clearly you're falling behind somewhere, because within 3 weeks, you should have made some progress. So it's a great way to keep not only your timeline in check, but also your fellow team members. So on your weekly meeting, if you decided person A was going to do the modeling, person B was going to reach out to the project partner, person C was going to finish this document that needs to be submitted, whatever. Then you have a place where it's written down where you can refer back and hold each other accountable and be like, hey, this is what we discussed last time. And when you set that expectation with your team members, they know not to fall behind on it. And another helpful task or helpful tool for this is your Gantt chart, right? If you have your tasks for the semester broken down into smaller bits to a point where each task can have somebody take ownership for it. So not general things like do some background research on the design or write the design document or build the prototype. There's a lot of sub-steps that go into doing those things, right? For example, building your prototype, it requires somebody to do the modeling for it first. It requires someone to buy the materials for it. It requires someone to actually go there and fabricate the parts. Maybe someone needs to go to the wood shop or to Bechtel to do some machining. So who is going to do those small bits in the middle, right? Because when you have those tasks assigned to certain people, then they know, okay, if Jack has done the modeling of it, then Julia can go and do place an order for the parts. Then this person can go and do the machining of these raw pieces. So make sure that you're noting everything down, you're making a clear, concise document of all of these tasks and things. So use your Gantt charts for that. It doesn't just have to be kind of like a semester plan for your over general tasks, but also specific tasks that people on your team will be working on. And have an estimated date of completion for each of those things, because if you don't, then it's kind of open-ended, right? That brings back to the point of holding each other accountable. If you know a certain task is going to take you 5 days, make sure you have that 5 days set in there or 6 days to give yourself some room for flexibility in case you run into some issues. So that's one way to use your Gantt chart. Next, again, I'm going to drill this in regular check-in sessions with your team members. It's not just there if something goes wrong with your project or if someone's running into issues, but also if someone's falling behind, it's an easy way to check up with them, especially if you're like a role of leadership, right? If you're the design lead or if you're the project manager and you know that a certain team needs to be delivering by the end of the semester, where are they? Have more frequent check-in sessions with them. Let them know you're there to help, or ask them if there's something you can do to assist them to better help cope with their timeline. Make sure that they're aware and that they're going to be held accountable for those things. Next is consistency. It's easy to procrastinate and lose track with that whole out of sight, out of mind mentality if you are having all of your meetings online, or if you're not able to, for some reason, come to class, or you choose not to come to lab, and you're only having kind of this virtual interface with your team members. It's easy to kind of be like, oh, I'll get to it when I get to it, or I'll get to it when the due date's getting closer for that design document, or when design review's coming up. And then you realize you just lost like 3 weeks of time in the middle because you were so busy with other classes or other commitments. You totally forgot to put in that extra amount of work that you need to get that progress for your project going, right? So keep up with your deliverables. Make sure that you treat this like homework, or treat it like, have that set amount of time that you want to spend for EPICS, because depending on how many credit hours you take, we expect you to spend a certain number of hours outside of lab on these tasks for your project, right? So it can be 1 hour after class to work on your notebook, add your weekly reflections and work and accomplishments and those kind of things. Another hour to work with your team on a certain part of the project, another hour on whatever individual work that you've been assigned. Make sure that you're plotting that into your calendar, right? You're setting that time aside to work on EPICS. Just because there isn't an exact due date every week for a homework, it's easy to kind of, it's a slippery slope. It can get out of hand real fast. So be consistent with your work and make sure you're holding yourself accountable as well. And lastly, this is very important with holding each other accountable, continuous improvement and constant feedback. And that's the reason we have mid-semester peer evaluations as well, and final peer evaluations. That's so your team members know if there's something that you're doing that's not working for them or that's not working for the team. It's that you get that feedback and you know what needs to be changed. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be mid-semester and final, right? If you feel a certain team member of yours isn't doing things the way the team needs it to be done, if they're not showing up to meetings on time, it may require you to have that difficult conversation with them. Or they might do the same for you. If you feel you're not comfortable with the way the design is moving in a certain direction, have that conversation with them, give your team that feedback. It's better than being passive aggressive and bottling it up and then typing it out in peer evaluations, which granted can be easier, but it may negatively impact your project down the line. So make sure that you're constantly letting your team members know where you're at to make sure you're all on the same page, you're all comfortable with the direction in which the project's headed, you're all comfortable with the rapport the team has with each other, because it's important for you all to be happy with the way you work together. And if something's not working out, if a team meeting that you decided at the beginning of the semester is not perfect for you anymore, you need to change that, make that improvement. It's okay. Those things can change as you go through the semester, right? So make sure you have that conversation. Now I want to open it up to you guys in terms of accountability or any of these things that we've talked about so far. What are some of the problems or solutions or tactics that you've taken up to ensure these things don't happen?
I know with my team, just an example, since we have a lot of new members on the team, that regular check-in sessions is extremely helpful. I remember from like week 2 to week 3, giving new people tasks. Some people would come into lab on Friday, and the week before I just said, okay, can you have this done by Friday? And then they'd come to lab and they just say, oh, well, I wasn't exactly sure how to do it, so nothing's done. So I would definitely recommend doing like weekly video calls or specifically reaching out to people and saying, hey, do you know how to do this? Like, does this make sense when you're assigning it? It's frustrating when you just assume that they know what they're doing and it turns out a week later that they don't.
Right. Yeah, that's a very common thing that I've seen before, where either people are hesitant to ask questions, or it becomes that thing where they lose track that this is something they needed to get done by next Friday or whatever. They won't bring it up until they see you next. So sometimes it's just really necessary for you to kind of, hey, knock, knock, making sure everything's all good. Do you need help with that? Did you figure it out? If not, ask me a question. So yeah, regular check-in sessions really help. Thank you, Cody. Any other additions?
I know my team doesn't really keep like meeting minutes, but we have like a team notebook to where we write down everything that we've completed each meeting. We don't really assign names to it, but that was a good idea to assign names to remember like who did what, so that they can put that in their EPICS notebook as well.
Definitely. I'm glad you find that useful. And I say that because at least for our team, when we did senior design, when I was an undergraduate, one of the requirements of the team was to show in almost a Gantt chart type document what the exact tasks are that need to be completed. And everybody had to list their names down next to, what tasks they were going to do. It can be 1 or 2 people, but, if there's going to be 2 people in the machine shop, who's going to do that? When do you plan on starting the task? When do you plan on ending the task? So instead of maybe, like a colored bar, it was just an Excel spreadsheet with the dates and the names and the tasks. So whatever helps you keep your team in check to keep the project on task, on goal, good for that. Any other additions? Comments?
One thing that's been working for me recently as design lead, at the end of every single meeting, I'll just go around, essentially like virtually go around the entire team and ask everybody what they have to get done by next week's lab or next week's meeting. So like everybody is conscious of exactly what needs to be done and what their specific task is. So I think that that helps keep people accountable.
Absolutely. I really like that, not just because it's like a good check-in to let people know they have something assigned to them, but also because they're the ones saying, because sometimes it can be that communication gap, right? Where say as a design lead, I tell someone, oh, so do you want to do that or make sure that this is done by next week? Either they're like, oh, okay, I'll take it as a soft deadline, we'll get to it. But when they're the ones to say it, like, okay, by lab next week, I have to get this part of the design document done. And that's kind of like a verbal affirmation that, yes, I know what I have to do. I know by when I have to do it, and I know I'm responsible for it. So I really like that. Thank you. Any other comments, questions, additions?
Hi, I'm part of EWB also in the human-centered design team. I think one of the things that has helped us with team accountability has been we have individual sub-team meetings during our design and lab meetings, and having the design leads kind of split up and individually go into those sub-team rooms at the beginning of meetings, and maybe the team members have more specific questions and giving them a chance to ask those.
We're kind of losing you. Your voice is kind of getting drowned out. Is it just me, or is someone else having trouble hearing her too?
Yeah, I was having a little trouble hearing as well.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, one of the things that has helped us is having the design leads kind of split up and individually go into the sub-team meeting rooms at the beginning of design meetings and lab. And this kind of gives the team members an opportunity to ask more specific questions related to their individual sub-team and get any clarifications on kind of what they'll be working on for that meeting. And then at the end, having everybody return to the general room and give brief updates for that week. And I think that's helped everybody stay on track too.
Absolutely, yes. Especially for those of you that don't have a background, EWB is one of the largest EPICS teams that we have. And they are split into sub-teams and sub-teams, and they've got even more like members working on different things within those sub-projects. It can be really hard for the leadership to keep track of what tasks they're working on. So that's a really good idea to have the design leads go in and check in with them, show some FaceTime, have that one-on-one time with the team members to get those updates and keep everybody in check. I really like that. Thank you. Any other additions?
Yeah, I just wanted to add something real quick. I'm Kristen's actually my design lead, and so I wanted to. Yeah, I mean that's absolutely right. That having that time where we in our sub teams are able to just kind of communicate our concerns or whatever we have going on at those times because of the the lack of just the ability to walk across the room and say, hey, we're having this problem. It makes it a lot easier and off of that, something that our sub team is kind of, involuntarily, or I take that back. I guess kind of, I don't know. We've ended up doing it without really even thinking about it. Is we've kind of at the end of each meeting that we have is we'll kind of just in a group me or even at the end of the meeting in a person, we'll just kind of talk about what we're going to do and just kind of, I guess, rehashing everything that we are still kind of, have ongoing for the next meeting. So, Kristen's done an excellent job with that, and it's been really helpful. It's probably something that we would end up continuing to do once we aren't virtual anymore, just to have that time to kind of catch up on everything we've been doing.
Awesome. I really like that. A good kind of wrap up to every meeting to have like the goals and the agenda for the next meeting. Awesome. Any other pointers? Okay, cool. So let's move on to the part where all of this can be really overwhelming. So don't let that get to you. When you set those goals for yourself and when you take on those tasks for your team, make sure that they're those bite-sized goals something that you can actually do in the amount of time that it has been assigned to you. And your TAs may have gone over this a bit when talking about your reflections or, working accomplishments. SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And those words aren't just buzzwords, but they're kind of to guide you through what you need to be thinking about when you set those goals for yourself. When you say you're going to do a background research on some kind of topic for your project, what are you researching? What part, what mechanism, what principle are you researching that's going to be applicable to? That's a specific part. The measurable part is how much time am I going to spend on this? How much content am I looking for? And what am I going to present to my team members next week? Am I going to have a document that summarizes everything? Am I going to have a presentation ready for them? Do I have some verbal pointers? Do I have some pictures or videos to show them? Measurable. Attainable: have I assigned this to myself on Tuesday and it's going to take me a week to do, but I want to finish it by Friday at this sub-team meeting because I put it off for too long? That's not attainable. It's attainable if you give yourself that enough time in the middle to be able to achieve that goal. Or, like the second point says, leave room for flexibility. Sometimes some of your tasks may be dependent on the completion of a task prior to it. Like that thing we talked about with building the prototypes. Maybe the person that was supposed to model those CAD pieces doesn't have everything, all of the parts of the assembly modeled all at once. Maybe they only have 10 of the 20 pieces done. So what can you do with those 10 pieces? And how can you fit that around your timeline to make sure that you will have enough time to fabricate the other 10 pieces that haven't been done yet? So leave that room for flexibility. Don't overdo things, and don't overbook yourself when it comes to picking tasks up for your team. Check in with yourself, see how much you've taken on, and is it reasonable for you to do what you're doing? But also at the same time, don't be like, oh, I just want to do one of these tasks out of the 10 tasks that the team has to do, and just kind of take a step back, right? Make sure that you're all doing your bit and you're all pulling your weight on the team, but make sure that it's realistic and you're not overdoing it. And the next point I feel is so important, especially at this time when some of us spend a majority of the day at home because either classes are online and maybe EPICS is your only class where you're required to be in person, or classes are recorded and you choose not to go to the in-person version of the class. Clearly define your living space and your workspace or your study space, right? Your bed is not your workspace. You are gonna sit with your laptop leaned up against the headboard and slowly slide down into a sleeping position and maybe ended up on Netflix and watched 3 episodes, not realizing it. I may or may not have done that. I will admit to it. But if you do that at your desk, if you do that work at your desk, your body is more responsive to being, upright. You've got your laptop in front of you. You're not in this cushy, comfy, under the covers kind of position. So make sure that you have that clear demarcation between where's your lounging space, where's your living space, and where's the space where you're going to be productive. Personally, I know I had conditioned myself to be productive in the libraries or like in the lounge spaces around campus, but a lot of those spaces have been cut down now because of the current situation that we're in. And I know, especially with a lot of you guys living in the dorms, you may have roommates and dorms aren't that big, so you may not have the same flexibility in terms of I can go to the kitchen table and get some room for myself, or I can go to my own room and do this meeting or get some homework done. It can be a little distracting having another person in the same room as you in such close quarters, but setting that expectation that, okay, my desk is the place where I get work done, my bed is the place where I sleep, my couch is a place where I eat food and watch TV. So condition yourself and make sure that you're not, blurring the lines between working and living and working and relaxing. And this also translates onto your virtual workspace, right? If you show up as online on Teams at 1 a.m. and you respond to messages at 1 a.m, people are going to rely on the fact to see you online at 1 a.m. So set those boundaries with your team members as well. If they want to be able to reach you, like I said, be transparent. Let them know when you're available. At 1 a.m. on a Sunday morning, is that a good enough time for your team members to reach out to you and expect you to have something done? That's up to you to decide. That's not for me, but make sure that that's clearly those boundaries are clearly set for you, for your mental health, and for your effectiveness as a team member. Take breaks. It can be really easy to forget that you're staring at this screen all day long, this laptop in front of you. Your lecture's on there, your class is on there, team meetings on there, or Netflix on there, whatever. It helps you stay focused when you take a step back. Sometimes you need a change of environment. Go around for a walk around the block. Read a book, take a nap. Talk to your friends, call your parents, do something that can give you that change of pace. You just need something to kind of snap out of the monotony of just being plugged in all the time. So find that thing that helps you relax and, break away from the stress of just kind of being connected to your team and so easy to reach all the time, because that's an additional challenge of, this hybrid situation where, previously, you would kind of rely on, okay, I'll ask them this question when I see them next in person. But now people know, okay, I'll just shoot them a message on chat and they'll respond in 2 minutes. This also kind of ties into that part about setting your boundaries with your team members, right? So make sure you get that break for yourself to recharge, to replenish, just whatever works best for you. Make sure to incorporate that into your schedule. So now I want to ask you guys, what do you do to not overwhelm yourself and to kind of help with the stress of not being in person with your team members, and also to kind of have that healthy work-life balance? What do you do in your time? Any thoughts?
For me, at least, I know it helps. Like, on a typical day when I don't have like an exam the next day or anything, I'll set like a deadline for myself. Like, okay, at 10:30 p.m. that is done with school. No more school stuff for that day. I don't know. It just helps me. Like, instead of thinking, oh well, I'm just gonna work until I sleep and then wake up and then do it all again. It's like it's a tangible thing. Like, oh, once I get to 10:30, then it's done with school. I don't know. It just works for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's kind of a good schedule to have. It's like a deadline, except it's not for your homework, but it's for you. So let yourself know to be mentally prepared. Okay, I'll do as much as I can in this much time, and then I'll go to bed. And I know, Cody, what you mean, because sometimes I try to do that for myself as well. Because if I don't set that deadline, then you're like, oh, okay, I have until tomorrow to get this done. And when there isn't that effective, like, okay, maybe I should stop by midnight and not be up at 1 a.m. trying to figure out this problem. I'll probably end up just like stretching it and, not being as focused on my work. So having the deadline is a really good idea. Thank you for sharing that. Any other tips or thoughts?
I think going off of that a little bit, usually when I get stressed out or like stressed out with work or stuff, I just usually take breaks. Like usually for me, it's taking a walk, or for me, it's like going on a run or playing basketball or something. And that just helps to clear my mind and, like reset myself. So then I can come back at it in like an hour and then be, ready. Because if I'm doing it like half with a half brain, it's not going to work out. So it's better to just take that break.
Absolutely. It really helps when you get a fresh set of eyes on whatever problem you're tackling or any homework that you're doing, because your eyes can get so stressed and tired and your brain starts to blur everything together. That refresh button of just stepping away, maybe getting some exercise, get that blood pumping again, it does wonders. Awesome. Any other additions? See how we're doing in time here. We're doing good. All right. If I'll give you all a sec. Did y'all have any other work-life balance tips or thoughts or questions for these? Okay. So the next slide that I have is for general meeting etiquette. This is kind of like an overarching things to keep in mind when you're meeting with your teams virtually. If you're not the speaker, please keep your mic muted to avoid background noise. I have been in meetings where someone's sitting by the window and their mic is unmuted and you can hear all the traffic outside versus the person that's trying to speak, and it's really distracting and frustrating. I have an online class where the professor has to keep reminding people to mute their mics, and it's kind of unprofessional, right? When we can hear you crunching on chips in the background and someone's trying to say something. So make sure that that's the first thing you do when you're in a team setting, and if you know someone's going to take the first time to speak, make sure your mic's muted. If you're the ones that's speaking, don't forget to unmute yourself because that happens as well. I would recommend keep your video on to stay engaged. Because like I mentioned previously, if someone's asking a question or if someone, throws out an idea, but there's no faces to look at and you don't really know what the general consensus is or what are the thoughts and expressions going across people's faces, it's kind of hard to gauge the temperature of the room, right? So keep your video on to stay engaged. It's nice to have that visual feedback for your team members when you're having a discussion, especially, and it's not just like a presentation like how I'm doing right now. And try to look professional if you're having a virtual meeting with your project partner, especially, right? Don't have inappropriate signs or wording in your background or whatever you're wearing on your shirt. Make sure you're not in a tank top or a strappy top when you're speaking to an industry professional, right? I'm not asking you to be in a three-piece suit, but a button down in khakis or just like a nice blouse would be, it goes a long way to just kind of show you're serious about what you're talking about. Again, meeting minutes, document everything. That's what your notebook is for. And because I know I've recently gone through notebook check, I can see a lot of variation of what people have understood from what notebooks are. Your notebook is your technical diary, right? So any thoughts that you have about your design, any concerns, questions that you have that you may want to bring up at the next meeting, make sure to write that down. If you had an idea in the shower about what you can do to fix that problem that somebody was talking about, go and write it down, right? Because you may forget about it later. You may forget it about when you have that meeting next week and that person doesn't bring up that problem again and it's been shelved for a while. It's easy to forget about those things. So any background research that you do, you want to take your meeting minutes, you want to put in pictures of something that you took, use your notebook. It's a really handy tool. It's a great place for you to document everything. And it's a great plus because the more you put in your notebook to show your individual accomplishments, the more us as TAs and advisors have to go off of what you've contributed to the team and what you've done for the team. And this was something brought up before. Prepare a list of questions to bring up during the meeting and have a confirmed meeting date and time with an agenda. So these 2 points are more for prep for the next meeting, right? A lot of the times I've seen people showing up to meetings without anything in mind. It's like, oh, we have a meeting. Okay. What do you want to do at that meeting? It doesn't always necessarily have to be the design lead or the project manager's job to have an agenda for the meeting. If you have something that you want to bring up that's concerning you, or if you have something that you want to bring up that can be a good change for the team, note that down. If you have questions about the progress of something, if you have the questions about how something works on the project and you're new to it, take that time during the meetings to address that. And only when you have that preparation for the meeting is when those meetings are going to be effective. Because if you're not prepared for it, you show up to the meeting, you're just kind of passively listening, not quite actively engaging in it, it doesn't make it as effective. Because then once the meeting ends, you'll be like, oh, I forgot to ask that question. Okay, we'll do it next time. And then you may forget it again, or maybe you'll just shoot a text to one person on the team and you won't have the entire team there to get their thoughts, right? So make sure you're prepared for your meetings because even though you may have some tasks to do by yourself, it's always helpful to get everybody's thoughts and opinions on it to make sure you're all on the same page. So yeah, any other etiquettes or pet peeves that you guys have when you're having team meetings and you wish people didn't do, or that you think I should add to this list? Did I cover it all? No additions?
Yeah, I think you covered it all.
Okay, awesome. So with that, I have this link to the video here, but because I have my headphones in and I'm not quite in a room where I can take it off and make you hear it, I will share this presentation in the chat so you guys can look at the video, but basically it's kind of a short summary of what we've talked about so far, and some helpful tips about being with your team and being cognizant about the challenges that you face together in terms of collaborating with each other and how you can go about that. But other than that, I hope this was helpful to you, useful to you. Either you learned something new or you got reminded of something that you used to do and you can incorporate with your teams. But here are some CAPS resources as well. I know it's a challenging semester and you may need some time for yourself, some extra time than before. It's difficult. So here are some links for, different resources, different articles that CAPS has out. Make sure to reach out to them if you need additional help, because if you're not good with yourself, it's going to be hard for you to function as a team member. So check in with yourself first, take care of yourself first, and then this class will be fun and you will be productive. So any questions to wrap this up? Any thoughts, concerns, comments, ending comments?
I thought this was a good presentation.
Awesome, thank you. All right, then if not, we can end this here and stop sharing my screen. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Shoot me a message whenever. I'll throw in my email in the chat as well. But yeah, thank you for joining me here, and I hope this was useful to you guys and you guys have a productive semester. Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.